Men, do you ever feel like you just can't get ahead? Like you're misunderstood? Like you have no one to talk to that truly hears you?
And women, are you often frustrated, hurt, and saddened in your relationships with the men in your life?
What if there were a community of like-minded men going through the same challenges that would support, hear, and understand what you're going through?
Working together in unison to create understanding, intimacy, and strong connections. That's the Way of the Illuminated Warrior.
Way of the Illuminated Warrior talk show is a forum of candid conversations for men and women about men. Being a man today is not always easy. Until now.
So during my practice this morning, I found myself sitting in Malasana, which is a squatting yoga pose that's always felt pretty good and natural to me. And it flashed me back to a time when my kids were really young and we would sit and play that way for hours. So it's over 2 decades later that I'm still doing this Malasana pose, which I didn't even know was a yoga pose at the time, and intentionally sitting that way and reaping the benefits that I had no idea would serve me so well after all these years. So we're going to talk about that because my guest today is Asheville yogini, Amber VanBuhler. So welcome to the show, Amber.
Oh, thank you. Happy to be here, Waska.
Yes, I'm happy to have you here because, you know, from what I know about you and what you've shared about your dedicated practice, it's pretty clear that you're having a love affair with yoga. Yeah, which is a beautiful thing. Yes. So we've discussed yoga and mindfulness and the benefits of having a practice. So, so I want to start off by asking you, like, what led you to your practice? And then, like, the decision, because you teach yoga now, to teach yoga.
Yeah, totally. So when I was 20, I had something kind of out of nowhere happen to my physical body. And it was a lot of not sure what's going on. And then I finally got clarity after multiple tests, MRIs, and I had this diagnosis that was going to be for the rest of my life. And I was like, okay, how do you deal with that? And I chose the holistic path. And that's how I found yoga. So along with all the other beautiful massages and acupuncture, because the irony of how much pain I was in, I still needed to move my body and not become sedentary. And I grew up a dancer and a cheerleader, and I found it was very, very natural for me. I was in Wilmington, North Carolina, and just fell in love with Long Wave Yoga Studio and started going almost every day. Instantly was hooked and instantly found the connection that's deeper than the physical practice. I've always been very spiritual, very connected to nature. And I was like, oh my gosh, this feeds my body, my mind, and my soul. So that's been since 2012. I've never really looked back. Other forms of fitness are great, but I'm totally a diehard yogi. And then the teaching, I went to school to be an elementary school teacher. I taught first grade for a whopping 1.5 years. I was going to change the world and love all of my students, but that path really wasn't for me. And I found that out very quickly. So I just let it go and I surrendered to the flow of the universe. And then probably 10 or so years later, I started feeling compelled and a calling to teach yoga. And ever since 2022, I'm at 3 studios here in Asheville. And it's just, like you said, it's a love affair, but it's totally fits. I am changing the world now through the gift of yoga, just not in a public school. My little brother said it perfectly. He's like, oh, you found your classroom. So I have the teaching instincts a part of me, and it joined with such an ancient practice. Thousands of years yoga's been around. So that's my little journey that led me here.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I never thought I would get into yoga, and I'm like, I've been hooked for a very long time now. So I had very frenetic energy when I was young. So I got into martial arts, which was really good for me because when I was really young, I used to get beat up and bullied and all. So I'm like, I don't know why my dad didn't tell me to do this. But anyway, nope, sorry, Dad, not your fault. But anyway, I got into martial arts, and it helped, like, just to kind of ground some of that energy, but not really. It wasn't, it was very, very hard, you know? And then decades ago, I got into Tai Chi and Qigong, and the school was teaching yoga also. And then I'm like, it's very linear. It looks very hard. It looks, it doesn't look, you know, that's for girly men. Yeah. Well, it's not for girly men. It's pretty awesome. So I tried it, and I was really kind of pleasantly surprised, because I've always been pretty stiff. I've always had to stretch before I exercise and all that. Just the flexibility that I've got from doing it. And I've tried all different types over the years. And interesting enough, when I first tried like Bikram or hot yoga, couldn't do it because I would get dizzy. And really lately, like the last 6 months, I don't know if my body's changing, my mind's changing, or what. I've, through the breath, I love the hot yoga because my muscles are warming up more, and I'm like, and getting such a great workout. So I'm really, really digging it. So yoga has become like a regular practice for me, not just exercise wise, but for my mind as well. Just the breath work that goes along with it. So let's talk about that a little bit. Just more than just exercise. What is yoga all about for people who might not know?
Oh, gosh, yeah, way more than just exercise. So there's 8 limbs of yoga, and the asanas, the physical practice, is just one of the 8. And like you talked about, the breath work, the pranayama. But one definition of yoga is the science of the mind. And thousands of years ago, yogis were meditating for so long that their bodies became stiff. And they're like, oh man, can we move? And so we could meditate even longer to reach that state of enlightenment, to quiet the mind, um, and really just find the inner peace that exists within. And I think that's the deeper layer of yoga. It's quieting the chitta vrittis, the mental mind waves, the mental chatter, and focusing your mind to be in the present moment. Much like any muscle in your body, you have the ability to train your mind and sharpen your focus and your discipline. And if you notice you're wandering in the future or in the past, and just bring it back. And that's part of the practice. And then the yogis also believe like your true nature resides in your heart. And so tapping into that energy too, and realizing that you are just this magical miracle and you're here amongst this whole big universe that's spinning in the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of realizing that limitless power that you have. I'm like, oh, cool, we're flowing and moving because everything's energy. And the breath is one of the tools that links you to the present moment and also has the ability to quiet your mind. The minute you pay attention to your breath, you're here, you're present. So
Yeah, that's so true. So one thing I really love about it, because I still have frenetic energy, it's just like it just brings me down like literally to the ground, it really grounds me
mhm.
and keeps me in the moment. So I really enjoy it a lot. Um, so there's a saying in the Bhagavad Gita, yoga is the practice of tolerating the consequences of being yourself, which I love.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever heard that one before, but yoga is the practice of tolerating the consequences of being yourself. And I'm going to ask you what you believe that means. To me, um, because I have a connection with yoga now for quite a while, it really helps me tap into like my boundaries, to be able to stretch myself, yes, pun intended, and really just to see who I am, like in a way that, like when I'm in the yoga studio, a lot of times it's, I mean, yes, everybody's around, but like I'm in this bubble of like, okay, I can do this, I can push myself, I can stretch, I could do things that I didn't know that I could do, I could breathe through, and it's kind of like a metaphor also, like I can do other things outside of yoga because I know I've pushed myself so hard sometimes in yoga to do positions and things. I'm like, oh, I can't do that. Well, yeah, I can do it. So
Mhm.
it's kind of a metaphor. So that's kind of like what that saying means to me. Yoga is a practice of tolerating consequences of being yourself. So what does that say to you? What does that speak to you?
I love that. That's an interesting interpretation. I think for me, it's understanding like that you are human and we're having this human experience. So often, some of the yogis are like, "Oh, you're not your body, and you're not this neti neti," and it's like, "Well, wait a minute. Here we are," and being able to tolerate that, and then expanding beyond that, like with your human limitations. Or I always like to say, you can take your practice off of the mat. And the practice really begins when you're interacting inside of the world and having tolerance perhaps for other people. Traffic is the best example. When you get cut off or you're in a traffic jam, can you center with your breath? Can you
Hmm.
just really let go and be in the present moment for whatever the chaos that perhaps is happening around you? And having tolerance for maybe when you do react instead of responding. And then you start to notice that. And so I feel like tolerance in this could be a little bit of like loving and kindness towards yourself, and we're knowing that you are perfectly imperfect.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I worked on a show years ago. I haven't worked for anybody else in a very long time, but I took this. It was supposed to be full time, but I knew I'd do it for 11 weeks. It was for this network in the studio in Manhattan. It was a health and wellness network, and they did yoga classes, which was really awesome. I remember this guy Jai Sugram was one of the instructors, and Sadie Nardini, really really great people. Anyway, I learned a lot more about yoga than I knew before. Just the whole integration of, again, the asanas and the pranayama and all. And so I've taken a lot of different classes. So I want to ask you, because you're teaching now. So what's the essence and the basis of what you teach in your classes and what you like to share with your students?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question.
Well, I just,
The essence of,
whatever comes to me, I
yeah,
ask. So
yeah, the essence is definitely empowerment and just realizing the gold and the divinity that lives within you. And the fact that you also have unending peace and everlasting love always inside of you. I often say you can't even lose it if you tried. So just kind of remembering that and deepening into that, while also potentially kicking your ass in a power flow while I'm at it. So
yeah.
there's both, So
So for you, like, do you have a favorite type of yoga for your own personal practice?
I definitely love like flow, vinyasa flows, power flows, the stronger energy and the fluidity of that. The Bikram and the 26 are a little rigid for my personality. So I love to flow and just be creative. But I also absolutely love the opposite, which is yin yoga.
Yeah.
And yin yoga is the slow, deep meditative stretching. You're holding poses anywhere from 90 seconds to 5 minutes. And I found that much later in my journey. So those are my two modalities. And then I also teach some classes that have a flow and a yin. And that's probably one of my favorites because time is a limited resource for many students. So you can come in for 75 minutes and get the yang energy with the yin and really walk out feeling balanced.
Yeah, that's so true. Like when I first got into it, I didn't know there was like, I'm like, restorative yoga. What's that? Or yin, and really holding those positions. I remember the first class I took, it was on Long Island. And I just remember, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to lay here and, this doesn't seem that difficult. And yeah, after 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, you go very, very deep and you feel it. I remember feeling it like deep into my tissues, into my muscles. And there's a lot of wisdom in that also, Um, yeah.
Right. Well, and it's like there's a lot of science behind it. Like after 90 seconds of holding a posture, a phase change happens. So the body quite literally starts to rebuild fibroblasts, hyaluronic acid. There's so much regeneration happening inside the body. And then you get the mental component. Like, oh gosh, you have no screen to run to, you have no phone to scroll. It's just you and your thoughts. So it's like you said, the deep wisdom that's in the practice. It's
Yeah.
powerful.
So I've taken a bunch of different classes, like throughout where different places I've lived in all, and the ones that I like the most really focus on the pranayama, the breath work, whether it's alternate nostril breathing or whatever it is. And I think about that like just the ujjayi breath, which you could speak a little bit more about. Like I remember I went to Colorado to visit a buddy. Never did rock climbing before. And we went up, and I was like,
Okay.
I really pushed myself because she's like, well, if you can't do it, if you want, I'm like, dude, can you do it? He did. I'm like, I was determined to do this. And I remember it was like a really hot day. We were in Golden, Colorado, and I'm like sweating. I'm like, my fingers are like, and I'm like, and I started doing this ujjayi breath just to regulate my whole body. And I kicked ass and I went up that thing and I was like, I looked down, I'm like, whoa. But the point being is that the breath really, like, it energized me. I didn't think I could go much further, so it really helped me. And I've used it when I hike and a lot of other times. So speak a little bit about that and explain what it is for people who may not know.
Yeah, so Ujjayi pranayama is one of the foundational breaths, especially for flow or vigorous forms of fitness. And so it's an inhale and exhale through your nose. I like to say you have these little nose hairs that work their magic. But you have a slight restriction in the back of the throat. And what that sound does, some people call it ocean breathing or Darth Vader breath. But really that sound allows your nervous system to calm down. It's the same sound that you heard when you were in the womb. So it's just really calming. And then it's empowering because you're using the breath as energy, as pranayama, as the life force, the chi, the raw, anything that you want to call it. And then it allows your mind to also just focus on that and away from, perhaps in this example, the fears of being so high up or being so tired and all these other things your mind can play tricks on you. It's like, no, we're with the breath, one breath at a time, keep going. So yeah, I like to say the breath can hold you and guide you, whether it's a physical, vigorous, or even when you're sitting there and holding for a really long time.
So I know with whatever practice I'm doing, whether I was doing martial arts or any kind of training that I've ever done, certain times I just don't feel like doing it, even though I know the benefits and I know how good it'll be for me. So, you're a yogini. So, I mean, do you get like that? And if you do, like, how do you motivate yourself?
Oh, sure, right. This back is back to the tolerance of the human experience, perhaps. I think the best thing that helps me is I never get off of my mat or walk away from a practice regretting it. And so if I can remind myself of how good it feels on all the dimensions, my body, my mind, and my heart. We have a saying in yoga, sometimes the hardest thing is to get onto your mat. And so just, I think, reminding and feeling that and just having the courage to do hard things. Eleanor Roosevelt said, we must do the things we think we cannot do. And so tapping into that, those are the ways I get myself onto the mat.
Yeah, do them and then do them again tomorrow and then do them again the next day. Well,
Yeah.
the competitiveness of it, like I'll tell you, I feel like I'm in better shape. Well, maybe not in better shape now because I'm older, but I feel like I'm in really good shape because of yoga, which I never really thought that I would get in such good shape. I was going like 6 days a week. I'm a little off my practice right now because I'm displaced from my home for the moment. But I really noticed, like, just even physicality wise, I'm like, wow, I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. I feel stronger, and also the cumulative of aspects to it also really, really do make a difference.
Oh, yes, totally. And like repetition is the mother of mastery. There's only so many poses, but it's an ancient practice. We have 5,000 to 6,000 years of lineage to kind of lean on. And then to your point, it's like the personal experience of like, wow, I feel good. And I talk about walking around with ease, and ease is the opposite of dis-ease, which is, put that together, is disease. And so with the breath and the flowing, life just feels a little bit better, and you've got a calm mind, a steady heart. So I'm glad that you start to feel the benefits of the practice. It's really that simple.
Yeah. Well, I learned that a while back also. It's like, it's not how far down you could bend. It's just it's just the practice, So everybody's got their own practice. I've always had really tight hips and groins muscles, and I can't bend a certain amount or a certain way. And like I was saying in the beginning, the malasana, just squatting down, to me, I could do it as easily as I could 20 or 30 years ago. It just comes natural to me. But other poses are not as easy, and they hurt, and I got to work it. And, but what I learned, it really doesn't matter. It's not a competition between anyone other than you. And you don't have to be in competition with you. It's just a matter of just doing the practice, and you will get benefits from it if you're open to whatever that experience is going to be.
Right. And some of the benefits are realizing, oh, my body doesn't do that. Like everyone has a different anatomy. So there's no way you'd look like anyone else. And knees are a really good example. Sometimes knees don't want to bend that way. So that's okay. And listen to that signal. And then your practice becomes, oh, this is as far as I go. And this may be as far as I ever go because my hip socket, this is the way. So like I could stay in this pose forever and I won't get any deeper because my bones won't go, like they won't move. And that's part of it. And like, but you're still showing up and you're here. And that's really all that matters. I have a saying like, deeper isn't necessarily better. And that's when the ego starts to play a little role in there. Like you said, like not competing with others or yourself, and just showing up for the practice and what it has to offer you in that moment.
Yeah, so true. So when I'm doing yoga, obviously there's a lot of other people in the room, and usually I'm just in my own head, my own space and all. But I mean, I watch the instructor, I see people, and everybody's got their own flexibility, their own movement, their own, and there's always those modifications, which I learned a long time ago too, because I would try to do the pose. I'm like, oh, this is, no, my body can't do this. Or, but there's always modifications that, I mean, I've heard it so many times. It's like, if it's hurting, or if you're pushing yourself, you're going to get hurt, then no, that's not the yoga that's really going to serve you very well, So it's very personal
Yeah,
to each person.
definitely. And it depends on the day. Like, it depends on so many different factors, whether you're physically tired or emotionally tired, or you got a lot of energy to burn. So yeah, you modify. I always say, like, do what feels good. And you kind of know
I always
what
say
feels
that too,
good.
even when I'm not talking about yoga, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah, cool. So your handle, as it were, is internal oasis. So where'd that come from? What's that mean?
Oh, yeah. So I feel as though when you practice yoga, you start to cultivate and create an internal oasis inside of you. And I think that is what the practice has provided me. And I feel as though that is what I'm here to help others cultivate and find within themselves.
Awesome. Awesome. So this is not what you do full time. You have a corporate gig also, right?
Yes.
So I've been around a few years longer than you. So and I've worked professionally. I've had my own business and all. And now, I'm blessed that, like, I'm doing kind of like what I want to do, and I've always told my kids, find something that you really love to do, and it won't really feel like work, and it'll feed your soul and all. So, and I know, because whenever we talk about yoga, yeah, I mean, you glow. So what's your goal? I'm sure your boss isn't watching this. No, seriously though. So, like, what's your goal, moving forward, with your practice, and doing this as a sustainable, beautiful, wonderful thing for yourself?
Yeah. So I don't really set goals. I surrender and flow to the power of the universe. And the universe has brought me here. It's amazing that I'm in Asheville, which is a mecca for yoga. I'm at 3 studios, just so many beautiful students, and it's all just happening. So my goal is to continue to trust and surrender even more than I ever have to wherever the universe wants to take me.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a good philosophy. It's a good way to be. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Very
I think
cool.
so.
And I'm very excited for you. March 31st, you are having your first workshop, correct? Sound journey
Totally.
and Reiki and yoga. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. First one, first time for everything. I had a student at Hot Yoga, Dustin, approach me, and this gentleman handcrafts wooden flutes. And he was like, "Hey, would you like to collab and do a sound?" He calls it a journey. And I love it. And I was like, totally. He sends me his Instagram, and I just get cold chills the first video I listened to. And I was like, oh my God. Again, the universe looking out, like, here you go. Here's an opportunity. And I've been trained in Reiki since 2014. That was part of my holistic healing, learning how to heal myself very gently and having acceptance for my body. And so we reached out to Asheville Yoga. They were all for it. So really looking forward. It's going to be a little gentle yoga with the sound journey and some Reiki all mixed in, a yummy 2 hours, just a little retreat, to step away and turn inward.
Yeah. What a great combination of things to couple together, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So if you guys are in Asheville, if you're listening to this, you better be there. And if you're not, flights are cheap, man. We got a regional airport here. Come on down. It's a lot of good stuff happening here, as you see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So what do you want to share with the audience that we haven't spoken about? Anything else about yoga, about getting into a practice, about, connecting to this wonderful way of being? Anything else you would like to put out there?
I think one thing I would like to put out there is kind of what you hit on in the beginning. There's just this stereotype around yoga, that it is just stretching, or it's only for women, or it's really, really hard, and the only way to do yoga is just to be able to stand on your head. So I just offer that there are so many different modalities. There's so many amazing teachers. There's a lot of online platforms that you can just start in the comfort of your own home if you're a little bit shy. I do think it's powerful to walk into a studio and feel the collective energy and then have a teacher help you and guide you there. So just encouragement of there's so many different styles, and it's such a a beautiful practice in all of your life. So I just offer anyone who's never really tried or has a perhaps perceived notion of it to maybe open and expand and try it out.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a wonderful invitation. Hopefully, people listening will take you up on that. Well,
yeah.
Amber, my friend, I really appreciate your time and your presence and your yoga offerings, and I look forward to checking out that workshop and keeping the dialogue going. Yeah.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much for having me today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. Well, as I like to end the show, let's continue to illuminate our paths with loving kindness. Namaste.
I love that. Yes. Namaste.
Visit IlluminatedWarrior.com if you'd like to go deeper and find out more about what's available within the Illuminated Warrior Men's Transformational Community. Tune in next time for more candid conversations for men and women about men on the Way of the Illuminated Warrior Talk Show. Until next time, illuminate your path with loving kindness.